Hey guys, what's up? I'm CJ and welcome back to my galaxy. Today we're talking about the Capitol, and I kind of just want to rant on camera about the Capitol and audience positioning. And this is going to be kind of more of a casual sort of video. I don't want to do too much editing to this video, and I just want to talk back and forth with you guys, talk on video, and then I'll have a chat with you guys in the comment section down below if you have anything to add to this conversation. So I know what I'm gonna be naming this video. Actually, I do have notes, but I just want to talk stream of consciousness in a way. Suzanne Collins wants us to be the Capitol. Most of you would have heard of audience positioning at some point in your lives. If you haven't, I'm gonna be telling you for the first time today, or if you don't remember, it's essentially what it sounds like. It's telling the audience how to view the story, and Suzanne Collins does that amazingly well. At least in my opinion, she does that amazingly well. Maybe you don't think the same. Maybe you have a little bit of, as much as you enjoy the Hunger Games, maybe you do have a little bit of critiques when it comes to certain literary devices that Suzanne Collins has used. You would have heard a lot of audience positioning if you've done high school English, or honestly, if you've done, primary school, or I know a lot of Americans are on my channel. If you've done middle school English, you've likely heard of audience positioning as well. They teach you a lot in, it's like the audience is told to, or the audience, it suggests, this technique suggests, that sort of thing. I'm trying to remember what I wrote in high school essays about literary devices. It's, this technique of a metaphor suggests to the audience this happens, and that's essentially where it comes from. And the Capitol is a very key part of framing the Hunger Games themselves and how we as the audience see Katniss's story. We essentially begin the Hunger Games, and especially in the arena, we know that from the Capitol's perspective, it's a show. We have Haymitch telling Katniss it's just a TV show. It's a television show. I believe he says it both in the books and the movies to Katniss when she gets angry at Peter for saying that he's in love with her on the whole national television to all of Pan Am, and she gets frustrated, and Haymitch is like, it's a television show. It's good. It's entertainment. We know how the Capitol views the districts, how the Capitol views the Hunger Games. Even in the prequel, we're introduced to Snow seeing the districts as animalistic, and that the arena brings out that animalistic nature and why the Capitol is above the districts and why they need to oppress the districts. Otherwise, human nature will revert us back to being animals. The Capitol sees blood and gore as entertainment, and we know from Katniss's very explicit descriptions that she is very aware of the cameras on her. Peter also aware of the cameras, and as of right now, as of filming this video and uploading it, Sunrise on the Reaping has not been out yet, but from the excerpts we've gotten, Haymitch also very hyper aware of the cameras on him. Katniss at one point is in the books. I don't think she's in the movies because we're not inside her head in the way that we are in the books, and the books being from first person perspective. As it crosses my mind, I'm going to tell you guys this, being from a first person perspective, we are inside her head as though we are witnessing a TV show, literally through the perspective of a camera. That's how movies work also as well. It's like, it's literal entertainment, and it's framed in the same way that the games are in the books. Do you guys get what I mean? How am I trying to, the movies are literally the games. And that's what people also complain about as well. I keep getting sidetracked. I told you guys, this is going to be a rant. Katniss is hyper aware of the cameras being on her at all times. And she's saying, I don't want to cry, I don't want to give them that. Haymitch says the same in the excerpts of Sunrise and the Reaping. We don't get that as much with Snow because it's a third person perspective, but he does give us a lot of the perspective of who the Capitol people are. Like I said, they see the districts as animalistic, and how it became entertainment in the first place because they needed a way to oppress people. But Katniss's awareness of the cameras, and in the movie, she actually, I think the way in which they're trying to in the way that they did adapt the movies from the books, with her thoughts of the cameras are constantly on me. And at one point, Katniss says that she wants to kind of close the shutters on the way she's experiencing her relationship with Peter in the first games, in the 74th arena, in the cave scenes. In the movies, there's a piece there's like a branch or something, or in the tree there's a camera, and Katniss kind of like looks at it and taps on it, and then it kind of pans out into the people, the game makers, and it pans to those people, and that's what I would assume is them showing that they're the Capitol. But in that moment, we kind of are the Capitol watching her through that screen. That's what I meant earlier when I just lost what I was saying, is that the movies are literally what the games, like they always focus on the games as well. We spend a lot of time in the prequel on the games, and where the novel kind of emphasizes, I want to say, equal parts for all, like before, during, and after the games themselves. But we focus a lot on Lucy Gray and her experience in the games in the movies. And that's essentially telling us as the audience, this is how we should view the games. And it's the same for the books and the movies. It shows the message in a different way. Whilst Katniss and Peter and Haymitch and whoever's, I would say also Finnick, honestly, at some point he's referring to, both in the books and the movies, I don't remember what exactly he says, but like his love, he's talking to Annie, but all the Capitol people are like swooning over him. So he says it in a very general way, that because he's aware of the cameras, and he's aware, and he looks like at the audience, but he's looking at us, right, as the real life audience, because that's the perspective that the camera is giving us. Katniss, all the tributes are very aware of these cameras throughout the novels, and then at the end, in the epilogue, a lot of people will talk about this perspective all the time. I see it in the community going around just every time we talk about the Hunger Games and the Capitol. And in the epilogue, we don't get Katniss and Peter's kids' names, because at the end of the day, Katniss is finally able to close off that first person perspective and tell us that, yeah, she is healing and it's difficult, and both of them are dealing with PTSD, but she's allowed to shut us out of that part of her life because the cameras are no longer on her. The Capitol has been essentially dismantled as an oppressive state. So we, as the Capitol, are no longer allowed to see her because her life isn't entertainment anymore. Suzanne Collins has done that on purpose. She wants us to be the Capitol. She wants us to be these people who are watching Katniss and her life and unfold. And in order to understand Suzanne Collins' message as a whole, we need to be able to understand, to at least some depth, personally, we need to understand the Capitol, so we can really see, we need to be able to see the message, but at the same time we need to be able to see Katniss's perspective. So what, at least how I would see it, is that the Hunger Games novels are a progression throughout the war, throughout, the Capitol's perspective. If we're looking at it from the Capitol's perspective, which today we're progressing starting from the Hunger Games, the very first novel. And honestly, you can argue starting all the way back to the prequel, but the prequel is telling us the war never ended. And in the sense that Suzanne Collins wants us to be the Capitol, we understand the prequel, I would say, personally. And if you guys want to disagree with me and provide evidence, I would say that there are aspects of this novel where they really aid the entertainment factor, because at the end, Snow decides, that there's like a betting element, and there's an element to the Capitol that it engages them to make it entertainment, but it's more about the continuation of war and what gets us to the point of the 74th Hunger Games. But if you start with the Hunger Games themselves, the 74th Games, we're seeing for the first time the oppression that Katniss and District 12 are going through. And we all know it's also a biased narrator, which also adds to the effect that we are the Capitol, because we're only seeing Katniss through a certain very heavily edited perspective. But by the end of Mockingjay, we've seen the war, we've seen the effect it's had on our beloved characters, But we've been watching it from kind of an outside perspective. We weren't affected by any of that because, well, if you got emotionally attached to the characters, obviously, you know, a lot of people hate that Finnick died, and that's like the brutality of war, and we're seeing that obviously it's the effect of war. This is why I can't like just rant at a camera. Oh my god, I need to think about this, right? And we're just emotionally or literally physically removed from the actual war itself. It's a fictional universe, but in the real world, when we're not experiencing like things like war and we're in a country that's not affected by that, then we're removed and only seeing it from a particular perspective. We're then able to move on from it. But the thing is, the people who are actually seeing it and experiencing it, they can't move on from that. And we know that one of the things that Suzanne Collins wanted to do with her novel, what inspired the novel, was her flicking between like reality TV shows and war coverage from the Middle East and American occupation in the Middle East. So, and I believe her father was a war veteran as well. So she saw firsthand the sort of things and the PTSD that comes along with a life like that and experiences like that. So the message she wants to bring across is that we're able to remove ourselves, because in this particular novel, to us, this is entertainment. And she wants us to see it as entertainment, but also have us think at the same time. And I would say that would also mean that us as an audience, we're not necessarily the capital as in Snow, the capital. We're not necessarily one of the characters that Katniss points out is very oblivious to what's happening, because we're not oblivious because we're reading the book. But we're more like the characters of, in the movies, Effie Trinket. We're more like her experiencing it and changing her opinion over time. Or we're like the stylist group in the books. Is that the stylist group the stylists? It's not the stylists. They're the prep team. That's what they're called. I forgot. They're like the prep team. The prep team has the storyline. If you haven't read the books, Effie's role in the movies is essentially what the prep team's role is. Effie's not in District 13. She's in the capital as a prisoner of war in the books. So the prep team and Effie are essentially who we are as the audience. That's how we're represented in the books. Suzanne Collins is essentially telling us that we're able to change our opinions the more information we know about a particular situation. You know, like in the Hunger Games, we start off seeing that it's entertainment and there's no way out for Katniss, or there isn't, but she's the protagonist and this is what she's doing, and we're enjoying seeing an action-packed story, but at the same time it has a lot of consequences, and we progress through those consequences as we go through the original trilogy. Like I said, the prequel has a kind of different narrative in a way, because we are seeing the story through Snow's lens, not the capital as a whole. He's very, very different as a character to the rest of the capital. He's different from Plutarch. He's different from, I think her name's Cressida, the director woman, and different from Effie, from the prep team. All those characters, each of them represents something different. Snow represents the progression of just how Panem ended up like that, and how the signs you see and the choices you can make, whether being right or wrong. It has a similar message, but the message of us being the capital is kind of underneath a bunch of other stuff. Another one of the reasons, and I think this is probably one of my last points as well, that I think that Suzanne Collins wants us to see, wants us to be the capital, and wants us to actually seeing it as entertainment. And this is one of the things, and I'm gonna say first, before I get to the actual point, is that a lot of people say that we shouldn't want more books because we are like the capital. Because if we want more books, we want more of the stories of the arenas. We're exactly like the capital. We're consuming really destructive media, or a lot of characters killing, being fictional or not. We're like bloodthirsty for children to die, essentially, as fictional. I'm like smiling, and it's really bad when it's a really bad topic, but it's People don't want us to be the capital, so we shouldn't get more books. I would argue, and I think I've said that a lot, I would argue a lot in this video, but it's too many books when Suzanne Collins is writing it for a profit and there's no message behind her novels anymore. See, that's when she should probably stop writing the novels, not because we're the capital and we want more. There's stories behind why it's happened. You know, I feel like a Finnick novel would provide a lot of depth into Panem, and it would be a good message. A sad message, but it'd be a good message for us to understand as readers. We are like the capital for wanting more of that, but what I'm trying to say in this video is that that's what her intention is. She wants us to know more. Suzanne Collins wants us to see the effect that people using harrowing stories, yeah, we're just gonna go with that. We're just gonna go with that pronunciation. You know, awful stories, that she wants us to see those stories and understand the effect of us finding entertainment in that. And she wouldn't be able to carry her message without making us the capital. And I've already practically said that, but I need to emphasize my point. And back to my final point, is that I haven't actually told you yet, is that Suzanne Collins had a lot of effect, a lot of charge. What is the word I'm trying to look for? She had a lot of the rights to her story, to her novel, when making a movie adaptation, because she was a screenwriter. She is a screenwriter still. And she was, I believe, an executive producer. And I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't remember if she was a screenwriter as well. So, or at least on the screenwriting team. So the way that the movies turned out, with a love triangle, and the marketing wasn't so much her, but the screenwriting was Suzanne, and she still framed Gail and Peter as kind of a love triangle. She wouldn't have done that. She would have fought back if it wasn't a part of her purpose. The movies and the books, I see a lot of people saying they kind of exist separately, but they're allowed to coexist, just parallel to one another. The story we see in the movies was entirely on purpose. It wasn't something that was like, oh no, we have to adapt it in this way, like we insist on this because it's the trends. There was definitely some things that were failed because of the trends during the early 2010s, you know, like, you know, Katniss being whitewashed in the movies. That was just the way that Hollywood worked back then, unfortunately. But a lot of it was on purpose. It is a very accurate adaptation from the books. It's not perfect, but it's very accurate, especially compared to a lot of other adaptations. And that was greatly due to Suzanne Collins having screenwriting experience and knowing what she wants and knowing what message she wanted to portray in the films and in the books originally. Let me emphasize my point. I definitely think that Suzanne Collins' message would not be there at all. It wouldn't hold to the books at all if it wasn't for the fact that we're framed as the capital. She has the full intention of us being the capital because we want the books for entertainment. We have to find it entertaining in order to keep reading. And we have to be able to keep reading if we want to see this progression of the consequences of finding such a story as entertaining. So Suzanne Collins had to do her audience positioning in that way. In conclusion, there was awareness from Katniss. Suzanne Collins definitely did it on purpose. And the message is there. We're the capital, and there's really nothing we can do about it other than maybe asking for a novel about Finnick, maybe. Anyways, guys, that is it for today's video. Please let me know your thoughts down below. Is there any other evidence that you would say that makes us the capital from the novels? Is there anything from the prequel you would say that also makes us the capital that I haven't mentioned? I really can't think of a way that the prequel suggests what the messaging I'm trying to do. It frames it in a different way than the original trilogy does. And it's just because it's Snow's perspective and it's a third person perspective. It's just it's a different kind of message, and once again, that was done on purpose as well. So definitely let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this topic, and if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, but I've been CJ, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!